What's up, guys, and welcome back for another EVE Online solo mining episode. This one I'm going to be mining some Isogen in high sec, and if you're not familiar with what I'm doing or what I'll be doing in this video, this is the rare ore that was added earlier this year or so. Now, I usually go after the Isogen rich ore here because with all of the mining I do in high sec for Trit, Mexilon, and Pyrite, I try to come out here and focus on the Isogen, and then on occasion dark ochre that has Noxium in it and Isogen, but those rocks are definitely very few compared to everything else. Now, for anyone who might not know how to find these or anything like that, I've done videos on how to locate this stuff, but it's pretty simple. If you look on the agency under or anomalies, look at 0.5 high sec systems. If those systems show they have an anomaly, and then you check on the map and they have a 0.4 low sec connection, then chances are very, very high that that is going to be a what is called Empire border or anomaly. And then you can find all the rare ores there, and it's a really, really good source of Isogen. Now, there's a lot of competition with these, so most of the time where these anomalies pop up, you're going to see a lot of people in local. You're going to have a lot of miners out on grid with you. You can take like a retriever or a Mackinac, but since I'm always traveling to mine this stuff, I usually just use the Endurance because there is a good amount of travel that is goes into it. And also the space for the retriever, like the ore hole for the retriever and all that stuff, is good to have. But I find that I usually don't mine enough to actually really fill up a Mackinac or retriever, just because of the competition that's kind of out on grid. And I also just kind of like the fast travel speed of the expeditionary frigates in terms of this, because on most days the gameplay loop that I'll do is I'll go find one of these border sites, I'll mine as much as possible, and then until there's really nothing left. And what I'll do is I'll put all the ore in an NPC station in the system, and then once I'm done, I'll try to find compression either in that system or adjacent to that system, and then I'll get everything compressed. And then I'll usually, if I'm not too far from Jita, I'll go drop it off at Jita and then go and find the next one. Now, I'm not, even though I usually don't travel more than like 11, 12 jumps to get to one, because you can see one on the agency and then get there, and then it can be pretty much completely mined out or that whatever. Finding this one, this is my second one to hit on the agency before I found something to mine. The first one I showed up, the warpable was still there, but there was no rocks on grid, so I immediately just kind of looked at the agency, went to the next one, and found this. And there's just a retriever here on grid, but with the amount of people in local, once everybody starts realizing that this thing is here, then we're going to start seeing quite a bit of mining out here, I believe. But I really do enjoy this in terms of like getting Isogen and stuff. It's a lot better it's easier actually even than trying to go out in low sec and mine Kernite and have to worry about rats or people just kind of chasing you around. It's these are not hard to find, and once you kind of get used to the whole process, you can go out and get a healthy amount of ore to give you Isogen for your manufacturing and stuff. So my goal today is to try to try to mine enough to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 100,000 Isogen that we can kind of pair with our stockpile. So when it goes out to when we get all of our ore out to nullsec, we want to have a good amount of Isogen and Noxium showing up with it. So there will be probably a couple days of doing this rare ore mining and everything. I did take all the ore in the normal system that we do regular mining in to Jita, so that stuff is staged. And then once we're done mining this stuff, then I will take all this stuff and just kind of throw it on that pile and kind of just keep track of everything. we're going to end up having probably 100 or so million plus of trit that we'll be trying to send out to nullsec. So in terms of like Isogen and Noxium, we want to also get as much as we can on that trip as well, because a lot of the things I'm building, while they will be heavy on trit usage, they will also need I'll also need a lot of Isogen as well as like the modules and things like that. We can get Isogen in nullsec from the few Kernite rocks on like the Colossal anomaly, but most of the time there's only like 4 Kernite rocks out there, and then only a few like Crocite rocks. So if I'm not lucky enough to get out there and grab those when they're available, then it's not a guaranteed Isogen or Noxium source for a everyday and everything. So this is kind of sustainable. This is predictable, and this is just kind of like, this is exactly the reason why this character has 2 ships. The Mackinac is essentially just for regular mining, and then I have this endurance here for doing exactly this. All right, so let's talk about income real quick for this rare mining. Now with the endurance here, unboosted, I can very easily do about 80 million an hour, and that's really kind of like chilling, taking my time. That's compressed value, obviously. Now if you were in absolutely any other ship like a Mackinac, or if you were boosted, then you can make easily north of 100 million mining this stuff. It's highly worth it, and I think that in terms of just mining for manufacturing, having a very reliable, sustainable source of Isogen, Noxium is important. Obviously, you can go and do low-sec mining and things like that, which can be a little bit more tedious than this. I would say that this is probably more sustainable for me, just because it doesn't require me to dip into like low-sec or anything like that. Now, there's 2 different versions of this rare ore site. The Empire Borders one is in the high sec 0.5, and then there's a nullsec Empire anomaly that would be in your nullsec with a 0.4 connection. Those are a lot thicker. There's a lot more volume out there. So if you're able to find those and throw a few alts and some boost out there, then you can really rake in the ISK doing those. But other than that, I try to do these like 2 or 3 times a week. I try to match the best I can the Isogen and Noxium I get with the Plag and like the Veldspar and everything, like I said. So when I get all my stuff where I need it for manufacturing, I'm not really left with any mineral deficiencies in certain areas. So it's kind of just an active way to manage all the things that we kind of need. Another thing I'll do is like, I usually mine like the regular high sec stuff in a system. I really don't move around too much. I try to stick to the same area. So if I log in and say there's a pirate stronghold or something that prevents me from mining in that system until that thing is dealt with, then I usually use that opportunity to go out and locate these rare ore sites and use that time to kind of fill that gap. I also don't hold on to ore in the systems I'm mining for too long. Usually if I get to like 8,000 to around 10,000 cubic meters, I will start looking at taking it to JITA. Another benefit of having something like the Endurance is the ability to move 19,000 cubic meters where you need it to be. And for me, everything stages at a certain point. I take it all to JITA, throw it on the stockpile, and then once that gets to a certain volume, then I kind of just ship it out where it needs to go. But this also allows me, doing it like, I try to move stuff to JITA like every week or so, or like I said, when I get to like a certain volume. But it's better for me to just move it on multiple trips over the span of like a week or so, as opposed to just like stockpiling it and having to do like really big trips. Like I really try to, I've done it, but I really try to avoid filling up the Mackinac with compressed ore and moving it to JITA. And I try to just do it with the Endurance because it's a little bit faster. And also it kind of breaks everything up. So like if, for instance, you lose a Mackinac full of compressed ore, you're potentially losing 44,000 cubic meters of mined ore, as opposed to if you lose a endurance, then it's only like 19. So it hurts a little less breaking it up. But also I just really don't like spending hours and hours doing back-to-back hauling for that stuff. So I try to just move it whenever I get the chance. But it's kind of my strategy in finding this stuff too, is I usually leave my endurance in JITA, so I'll fly to JITA and then I'll look at the agency and see what .5s have anomalies relative to JITA, and then kind of go from there. There's been times where I've kind of chained these sites together and have ended up 20, 30 or so jumps from JITA, so coming back with ore can be a little tedious and time consuming, but I try to avoid that. So like I said, if there's a rare ore site within like 10 jumps of JITA, then I'll go and hit it up. If anything is beyond that distance, I'll try to just wait until those sites are mined, and then ones populate a little bit closer to home. Because then that's basically because I am strictly mining for export, and so I want to make sure that like I don't spend too much time, or I don't have a lot of exposure moving that stuff. So you get definitely enough isogen from mining this stuff to make it worth your time, and you make a considerable amount of ISK. Like when you compare the income, like the compressed ore value for like Mackinac doing like regular high seg mining to just mining this stuff, it is insane. It is like one trip. I can build Mackinac with like Beltspar, for instance, and when I compress it, it's like almost 6 million in value, whereas 3 cycles on this stuff is already that value at much less of the volume. So by and large, it's like one of the best things that I really enjoy doing. I got a question on the channel a couple days ago, or yesterday or so, and it was asking how I resist the urge to just throw like a porpoise and a few alts kind of at my high seg mining and stuff like that. And if you watch this series earlier on, then you know that we've done kind of that stuff before. We've taken out the porpoise and a bunch of alts and boost mined. You can do a crazy amount of volume that way, and on these rare sites even it's even crazier. But all my alts are essentially kind of tasked out at the moment, all doing different things. And also this character tends to kind of stay on its own screen and kind of do its own thing, while I'm also doing things like PI or messing with manufacturing, starting jobs, doing invention, stuff like that. So really it's not about resisting the urge, but also just kind of like multitasking, because if I committed like a porpoise and a few more alts to my mining here in high sec, then it would definitely take my attention away from what I'm also kind of doing at the same time with other characters. And also it just kind of lowers the exposure too, because instead of like being a multi-character operation on a belt, which a lot of the motivation that people have for ganking miners is if they're like bot adjacent, or if they look like they're botting. It really, I mean, people just have more hatred for things like 3 alts and a porpoise kind of sitting there looking like they're AFK. And also you're an easier target too, because you have a lot more when crazy stuff happens, then you're, instead of worrying about getting one character off grid, you're worried about getting multiple characters off grid. So it makes the success rate for suicide gankers a lot better, because they have multiple targets, and they have human error on their side as well. So a lot of it is just like reducing exposure, reducing the amount of attention, or the amount of things that need to happen if local gets a spike or whatever the case may be. But there will be times in the future where I'll probably get some more alts out here and commit more alts to the high sec side of things. But really it's going to kind of come down to how we're doing, and we're going to know after we do our first export out to nullsec. We'll know if we need to add any more alts to this side of the pipeline, because if we do a week worth of mining and then we send all that stuff out to nullsec and we burn through it in the first couple of jobs, and we're going to know right away that we need to probably up our volume and up our speed and frequency for the requirements we have out there, which and we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get to it and expand that as we need to. I do have a few more alts kind of in the cooker. They're kind of just generically training right now, Magic 14 skills, but if they need to be minors, they will. But all new accounts that or characters I create essentially get PI skills and blockade runner skills before they get anything else. So if they need to be minors, and we can task them out here to do this, only time will tell and everything, and see what our needs are. I don't want to overextend on the high sec side. I do know that for mining in nullsec, I probably will have a couple of alts out there just to facilitate getting things like Kernite and the Omber and the Crocite kind of off field whenever it does spawn. That in conjunction with rare ore mining here should give us enough Isogen and Noxium to pretty much do everything that we need to do. So hopefully that'll all work itself out. But other than that, this is a pretty easy way to make a good amount of ISK. Even bringing an adventure out here and mining this stuff as an early player, as a very new player, is still highly profitable. It's all about just kind of like knowing how to find it and then utilizing your time most efficiently, and you'll be good to go. Like these didn't exist when I first started playing, but anybody starting the game or just starting mining, get an adventure and come out here and do these sites, you're gonna be you'll be doing pretty well, and you're gonna be setting yourself up pretty good as well if you want to get into manufacturing. But obviously you don't even have to do that. You can come out here and mine this stuff, compress it, take it to Jita, you can sell it that way and make a killing as well. Since we're on the topic of boosting and everything, another question I saw on the channel was, how do you know the kind of the sweet spot for alts when it starts to become overwhelming? Like, how many alts would you recommend, I guess, for a command ship and things? And really, it kind of depends on how much you want to manage, how much you want to, how much downtime you're kind of wanting in between things. But I have seen, in my experience, what I've done in like nullsec with like a porpoise, you can get a porpoise with 4 or 5 hulks can work out really well. The thing about porpoise is the fleet hangar is very, very small, so you're not going to be moving ore. Now that compression exists on the command ships, we don't really move ore into orcas and porpoises like we used to. So the Hulk has really, really great range. It also has really great cycle time. But the thing you have to realize is the Hulk has a very small ore hold in comparison to things like the Mackinac and things like that. So you can have 4 to 6 Hulks with a orca or even a porpoise, as long as you're keeping up and you're swapping your clients, and you're keeping up with the compression and everything. You won't have too much of an issue. Now those hulks, even compressing that ore, they'll still fill up pretty fast, and every time you compress ore and keep it in their hold, the amount of time that you have to compress that ore gets smaller and smaller. That's why the Mackinacs are really nice. Even now, if I was going to put like 4 to 6 alts on a orca or porpoise, I'd probably go all Mackinac with type B2s and boost. That way I have that 44,000 cubic meters to kind of work with. It gives me a large buffer to kind of like, take my time cycling through all the alts and getting everything compressed. And it also just allows me some downtime, like some breathing room to kind of worry about rats or check local or check D-scan. When you have like 6 hulks boosted with an orca or whatever, then you're going to be constantly just compressing that ore to make sure that those lasers don't turn off, and that's going to take a lot away from your situational awareness in terms of looking at local, checking out D-scan, looking at intel and things. So I think like a good area to kind of a good balancing area would probably be like if you got an Orca, then go 5 to 6 or 4 to 6. If you plan on going beyond 6, just go straight Mackinac. I think that's been said as well in the comment section. But yeah, Mackinacs are a lot better for anything beyond 6 because it just gives you a lot of breathing room. The other thing you can do too is, and I've done this before as well, is I'll do like a couple of Hulks, and then maybe the rest of them are Mackinacs, or even split too. I can even see like an argument for having 6 alts, putting 3 of them in Hulks, 3 of them in Mackinacs. That means that half of those alts you really don't have to worry too much about as far as compression, and then you have the other 3 Hulks that are really about reaching out and grabbing rocks that are further away or whatever. And that really kind of will help a lot with high-sec mining, because if you have 3 of your alts in Hulks, they have a longer range, and you put them at the max distance and mine the stuff at max range, and then your Mackinacs can mine everything at short range, and so there's no real crossover there, and there's no way that those Mackinacs would be able to even touch the rocks that your Hulks are mining at max range, because they just wouldn't have the range to mine it. So that's a good way to like just keep lasers kind of separated and stuff. Doesn't really apply in things like nullsec when there's very few rocks, but they're like much larger volume. Moon mining, it could a lot of the times I see in moon mining and nullsec will be Hulks, just because the moon fracture, the rocks can be very, very far apart. So having for instance Hulks with and all those alts having harvest implants, having that maximum range, it allows the Orca or the Porpoise to not have to move so much to kind of keep things in range of all your alts is beneficial. I would say like mining range on the mining range for the Hulks is probably more important in nullsec than it is in highsec. Highsec, I would probably go just straight Mackinac, regardless of how many alts you want to pair with a Porpoise or Orca. I would just go straight Mackinac all day. And I think there's also a pretty good argument to go straight Mackinac even in nullsec. I mean, especially if you're like in a drag mine and like you don't plan on like compressing. The other thing too is like if you want to like have as much guarantee of like survival, and you're just constantly aligned to like the POS or a rear tether or something with an Orca, and you have all your alts trailing behind you. If you don't want to worry about being stuck in like a siege cycle, then Mackinacs all day, right? Because 6 Mackinacs, 44,000 cubic meters each, you go out there and drag, and that's a good haul, and you don't have to worry about too much. And then if you're in a Porpoise, sometimes I just go out in a Porpoise. They have a very low cycle duration on their siege module, so I'll go out there with a Porpoise and a bunch of Mackinacs, just drag a line, do a bunch of mining, and then once everybody gets kind of around the to 20,000 or so cubic meter in their capacity, then I will just cycle the siege once, cycle the compressor once, compress everybody, and then come out of it, start moving again. That gives you a lot more control too, because it's not just like neutrals that you should worry about in nullsec in terms of mining. Same thing for like highsec. If like there's a local spike, if you're stuck in siege, you're at the mercy of that. But also in nullsec, you have to worry a lot about getting rat carriers or rat dreads that show up on noms too, and you don't necessarily want to be stuck in a siege cycle on your command ship when one of those come in. Now your alts can get off pretty easily. That's why I usually have like a designated alt that is like a wing command. It's usually the first alt. If I'm cycling through all of my alts, the first alt that I hit after I see my command alt is usually the wing commander, and that allows me to kind of just put all the other alts underneath them in that wing. So if like something like a rat dread come in or a rat carrier, I can just, if I'm on my command tune, I just cycle one more time, and then I just warp the wing, and I can take all the alts with me. If I'm not sieged, then I can just take the command tune, warp fleet, and take off. So like I said, it's situational. It's very, very situational in terms of like the number of alts and the configuration you want to do. But if I had to like just give like a blanket generalized statement or recommendation, I think porpoises with Tech 1 siege modules are really good. Because put it right down this way. Let's say you're in high sec, or even if you're in like null sec and you're wanting to like siege and compress and things like that, you have to provide yourself with heavy water. Which if you're in null sec, you can go mine ice or whatever, or you can import it. But the Tech 2 siege module for the Porpoise will consume 150, I think, heavy water per cycle, whereas the Tech 1 will consume only 25. So if you're not wanting to like burn through a whole lot of heavy water, and you're not wanting to constantly resupply yourself, if you're compressing or sieging all the time, the boost difference between the Tech 2 siege module and Tech 1 is not enough to really be too concerned about. And what I've done in the past, or most recently what I've done with my boost Porpoise, is I'll just run that Tech 1 siege module, because 25 heavy water per cycle compared to like 150 is insane. You can get so much use out of the heavy water that's in the Porpoise by only using like 25 per cycle. It's insane. So I think I'll probably might end up doing a comparison video, but like kind of just showing you guys a good idea of how long like a Porpoise with a Tech 1 siege module can last at max skills. It's pretty decent. You take like one blockade runner to like Jita and fill up on heavy water, and that Tech 1 siege module is gonna last a long time in terms of mining. Even if you are out in like doing ice in nullsec or whatever, and you have a Tech 1 siege module, you're gonna mine enough ice probably in that cycle to we get close to filling up that Porpoise anyway. So there's no real, you don't have to worry about the cost. Even with the Tech 2 siege module, the heavy water you use to mine and siege is negated, right? Because heavy water is very cheap, and it lasts quite a while, and the amount of ore you get from having those extra boost bonuses, I don't really look at heavy water as a cost. It is definitely an item that you have to kind of like provide yourself with, but it's in terms of just like your bottom line, it is so minimal that it's something I don't even worry about. I do like calculate it in like my profits, right? So if I'm selling ore or whatever, I will take that ore value, I'll minus the heavy water, and that's what my actual profit per hour is. If you're not worried about that kind of thing, but I'm usually not for the most part. I just it's a operational cost, and it's so cheap that the benefits definitely outweigh the expense. Now there are a few things to kind of be looking out for when you're out here doing this rare ore mining. I'll say the same thing is probably true for ice mining, but I think ice mining is probably worse in terms of people trying to control the resource, because normally if you go out and like mine ice in high sec, you're gonna have people that are gonna bump you off and just generally just be kind of idiots and trying to like not let other people kind of mine that stuff. I've never really had any issue with bumping or any of that crazy stuff here doing rare ore, but it's never beyond the possibility. So that's why another big benefit of having like an endurance. I don't have a prop mod on this endurance, but I think that having one is probably not a bad idea either, just because if you do have people that start bumping you and stuff like that, then you can kind of just burn back to your rock and kind of put lasers on. But otherwise, if you have people that are just playing that whole like bumping game, it's almost worth it going and finding another site, because just dealing with that is just obnoxious, and that's just kind of behavior that you're going to find in high sec that is just going to be, it's been a common thing for years. But like I said, I don't really have any issues with it for this stuff. I think because most of the time the people who are bumping can't commit enough dedicated time to go out and find these sites to then harass people. Ice is pretty easy because it shows up very, very easily and in the same systems on high sec, so it's less work on their part to go out and kind of grief those anomalies, because low hanging fruit for the most part, and that's just kind of like how it goes. The further you get away from the easier accessible things, the more you get away from that kind of just idiotic behavior of people bumping and stuff like that. Bumping really hasn't happened to me a whole lot. The last time I went out and mined ice, actually, it happened pretty bad. I went out with like an endurance and did it quite a bit and was unbothered. And then I went out with my Orca and a Mackinac alt, and it was when I started boosting myself and providing myself with compression that they didn't like, so they started bumping my Mac and my Orca, and then I decided just to switch back to my endurance and with a prop mod, and just kind of when they started coming at me, I would just start moving laterally, and it's still obnoxious because the endurance cycle time is very long, so the chances of you getting one piece of ice before they really kind of get you and bump you off the rock, I ended up just going out and finding another thing of ice. But ice is extorted. I really wouldn't recommend. I've done ice in high sec. I've shown that kind of process here, but it is not worth the trouble. Ice in high sec is heavily extorted, and a lot of that is people go out there and bump, and then if you don't want to get bumped, then you have to pay them like 200 million, and then they'll let you mine ice. And like, nah, I'm not playing that game. You could literally go into like a low sec system, find an ice belt where nobody cares about, and grab that stuff, or even a null sec and find an ice belt that nobody cares about and not have to deal with that. And plus, in null sec, you get like pristine, you get like the better ice anyway that has more stuff in it. So it's like, don't let any, that's one thing, another thing I'll say about like mining in high sec, do not let anybody extort you for anything. It is not worth it. Go find another ice belt, go find another anom, whatever. They can spend their time, griefing and bumping and doing all that crazy stuff. Because while they're in that ship bumping people, they're also not, that alt is not in a ship mining just as much as you are. So, but also sometimes I'm guilty of just like, messing with them too, going out there and just playing cat and mouse around rocks and stuff. And one of the bigger defenses against that too is if you're in like an endurance, is they're going to try to like get really far off and kind of get a good running start so they can get high speed. So if you see them coming at you, use the rock, like the ice rock, and put the ice rock between you and them. And so having like overdrives in your low, anything that allows you to get like more sub warp speed and agility is going to help with that. So, and that really pisses them off too. It's just always keeping that rock between you and them. It just gets exhausting after a while. Like all you want to do is go out there and mine and chill, and you have these people pulling that kind of stuff. But it is what it is. They were doing it 3 years ago, and they're doing it still. So there's probably less of it going. I think it's mostly Caldari space. Caldari space, the space around, the high sec space around Jita is very bad with that kind of behavior. You start going like really far out, like if you start, and that's why I try to operate in like 0.6 or 0.5 high sec systems that are pretty far away from Jita, and like almost right next door to like the low sec belt before you get into null sec. Those systems are a little bit more there's a little bit less of that craziness going on, especially for like suicide ganking. A lot of people who are suicide ganking out there, they want to be close to Jita, because when they gank somebody and then they scoop the wreck or whatever, they want to be able to like take that stuff to Jita and sell it. The further you put yourself from like a market hub, the less likely you're going to get bothered, because you're inconveniencing their whole process. Like I said, very low hanging fruit when it comes to things like suicide ganking and bumping. So anything you can do to like make their whole process more inconvenient is going to be beneficial to you. But I would say historically I have not had issues with like suicide ganking or bumping. I think I've only been bumped twice in my entire EVE career. I've never been suicide ganked. A lot of that just being able to like, a lot of that, the reason I've avoided a lot of things like that is because of just like learning the mechanics of the game and learning what to look for, local spikes, and just being like paranoid. Like if I see a local spike, I will just warp off grid, crab it out, and that has allowed me to stay away from a lot of unnecessary losses. And I got a lot of people I've known have had a lot of substantial losses, and I've like learned from all of that. But that is what Eve is. That's the nature of the beast. That's part of the excitement, because if you were never harassed while mining or ratting or doing anything crazy, then the prices on the market would definitely reflect it. And that's what I try to tell myself too, is like, if you didn't have to deal with all this crazy stuff while you're mining, and all the rarity and like the scarcity and the suicide ganking and the bumping, right, then the stuff you're going after in mining would just be worth less, because there would be no risk or anything associated with gathering it. So it just, like I said, it's the nature of the beast. It has to exist. If it doesn't, then mining would truly be worthless. But in terms of just like overall mining, especially if anybody's wanting to get into mining, high-sec mining is always going to be great for cutting your teeth. And a lot of like the high-sec mining that I've been doing lately has just been strictly to get like trit, because once you start doing like these rare ore sites and you start doing the anomalies in nullsec and things like that, you're going to get a lot of what you need for manufacturing, and even melting loot, you're going to get a lot of what you need. So once you get to the point where you've moved on and you've moved past like the high-sec thing, keeping one alt here just to mine Veldspar is probably enough. Then that's probably much all you need, and everything. If you go into like wormhole space, then it's even the same is true. So after a certain point, once you get really advanced and you kind of like branch out and start doing a lot more things like Poshman mining and stuff like that, then trit is really only going to ever be your main bottleneck in terms of manufacturing, or what you can't get like in nullsec. So that's why I don't put a whole lot of pressure on what this tune does in high sec. I don't try to do anything crazy. I don't try to go into like low sec and mine Kernite all day and be hyper vigilant and worry about people chase me around system all day. Like, it's not worth it. It's better for this tune to just sit on a high sec belt and mine Veldspar, and that's it, because I can have a lot more fun in Poshman or looking for rare ore sites or doing anoms in nullsec to get the other things that I need, which are all a lot more entertaining than being chased around for mining Kernite or whatever the case may be. So kind of just how I have everything set up. If I do add more alts to this kind of a situation, I'll probably add one alt. I'll probably have, because like this tune right now is a command tune. It can run Orca, Porpoise, full boost, all that. So I'll probably train just a normal, probably Mackinac, max yield Mackinac pilot, and then pair it with this tune being in a Porpoise, and just run a command Porpoise kind of combo with boost, Tech 1 siege, and compression. And then that allows us a lot more control about a lot of where we mine and things like that. Another goal I've been trying to think about doing is I would love to actually just track it in some way, but also be able to mine. I want to like go to every high sec system that is in existence and mine at least for 1 hour, and see if I can just as just kind of like a little goal for myself, be able to say I've mined in every high sec system in New Eden. Obviously, that's not a very big challenge. I could probably do several of those systems a day. The biggest challenge in doing something like that is just tracking. So what it'll probably end up coming down to is getting a list of every high sec system in the game, and then slowly just like ticking stuff off the list. And I definitely want, another way you could go about it too is like you could just add systems as you mine in them, and then cross-reference. But I think it's easier to actually cross things off a list than adding things to a list, so that we don't like miss anything. That's something that I've been thinking about for like a few months now, and that would just like the series for that. Even if that's what solo mining becomes like later on, but like each episode would be basically dedicated to like a system, and that episode we would just chill, mine in that system, kind of do what we normally do, but you know, every single episode would just be a different system until eventually we've done every system. Interesting kind of concept, something that I'm been kind of kicking around and everything, but I plan on doing a little bit more of this rare ore mining today. Try to get as much Isogen, because like the thing is like we're not being harassed right now. We do have some competition on grid, obviously, so this site won't last too much longer. But since we're not being harassed, we can, you know, do as much as we can here. And then if there is a anomaly not too far away, we'll go hit another one. And that's just kind of like the thought process behind that. And then once I get to a certain point, usually when I get to the point where I have like 100,000 or so refined Isogen for my compressed ore, is usually when I'll take it all back to Jita, and kind of either wait for a new anoms to come closer, or you know, really kind of just dedicate some travel time. I try not to travel more than like 15 jumps, because that's 15 jumps there and then 15 jumps back. That's 30 jumps. It can take a minute, even in a endurance and all of that. So that's just something that I'm always trying to avoid. And also just downtime, like just with everything in general, just especially mining. You know, for every second that your like mining lasers are not on is like, you know, money lost. And I try to calculate travel into that as well. I spend like 5 minutes maybe in traveling to find this site, and it's obviously worth it because we're going to, you know, probably hit about 60 million in compressed value by the time we're kind of done here. We could have pushed for like the 80 million an hour for this endurance, but there's so much competition on grid that I don't think that we would really get a third trip out with this. So I'm probably going to end it after this this run, and then either try to go find another one, or just take it all back to Jita and kind of go do a few runs of Veldspar or whatever. But I really wanted to just, I know it's been a while since we actually kind of showcased the rare ore thing. I can't even remember what episode back we last mined this stuff, but I figure it was worth doing for this episode, and kind of reintroducing and showing still how valuable and viable it is, especially with our manufacturing focus that we're doing right now. So hopefully you guys have learned a few things this episode and want to get out there and kind of hunt for these as well, especially if you're manufacturing here in HiSec. Definitely worth it. If you're building ships or building anything here in HiSec and you don't want to travel to like low-sec or Poshman or null-sec or wormhole space or whatever, then yeah, doing these is a necessary evil. But I think that'll be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.